Hello and welcome to another Thursday interview here on Viking.TV with me, Anne Diamond. And this week we're celebrating Viking's cultural partners. And today it's my pleasure to take you inside one of London's little treasures. In fact, you wouldn't know it was there unless you're actually in the know or you live in one of the beautiful houses nearby. Nicknamed Millionaires Row, the beautiful tree-lined streets are home to the likes of Sir Richard Branson, the Beckhams, Elton John, Robbie Williams, I could go on. Though it is a public space, it is a hidden gem of a park called Holland Park in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. And every summer it bursts into life in a symphony of sound. It's an event called Opera Holland Park, and Viking has been proud to sponsor their productions for many years, as it will again this summer with the operatic favourite, Carmen. Let's just get a flavour of what that is going to sound like. So let me introduce you now to two amazing people who will be making that all happen. James Clutton, the CEO and director of Opera Holland Park, and Carmen herself, Kezia Bienek, who will be singing that role all summer long. Hello and welcome.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hi. Lovely to be with you. Kezia first, that was a joy hearing you sing that. I mean, we're going to play that aria in full a bit later on, but it's a wonderful role, isn't it? And I gather you really like the character of Carmen.
Absolutely. I think she's really fun to be around. You know, she's clever. I wouldn't want to cross her, but I think she's going to be really fun to play.
And you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Let's hope the weather holds out for you. James, Carmen is going to be a real crowd pleaser, isn't it? It always is. I expect you're expecting record crowds, aren't you?
Well, I hope we'll get great crowds. I mean, not quite record crowds, Anne, because since the pandemic, we reduced our seating and to make it safer. And even though things are a lot better now, we've kept it a bit distance as well, just to make it absolutely safe for all of our audience. So we're at about 70% of what we used to be. So we're about 700 a night. And yes, we're hoping that we'll sell out. We're having a very good morning selling Carmen right this morning. So that's a good sign.
Yes, it always goes down well, doesn't it? But I mean, I know that Opera Holland Park has been sort of hailed as the perfect site at the moment, given restrictions due to COVID, because you're outdoors and you can also place the seats where you want them placed, as opposed to being forced to stick to what's already there.
Exactly. We are undercover, even though it's outdoors, we're undercover, so you don't get wet. But yes, we used all chairs from our previous shows and borrowed chairs from the National Theatre and Welsh National Opera. And I say that every seat in the auditorium was once on stage somewhere in this country. So every chair's got a story to it. And it gives it a little bit of interest and comfort and a bit of space still in these times, because even though hopefully we're through the worst, we still want everyone to feel absolutely comfortable and secure when they're coming out for the evening.
Well, before we get stuck into talking all about how it even happened, how Opera Holland Park even grew and how brilliant it's going to be, should we have a quick look at what's going to happen this season? You brought out this video. Let's have a look. It looks as though it's going to be brilliant. James, tell us all about Opera Holland Park then. I mean, we've got a lot of people watching at the moment who may never have heard of it, but may well be in London and looking for something wonderful to do. How did it even start? Where did it come from?
Well, there's always been an artistic element to the house that we play in front of. It was called Holland House. It was built in 1605, and through its history, it had always connections with artists. So Walter Scott used to go there to visit, Charles Dickens, Lord Byron went there, the poet. So there's lots of great artistic history there. And there's even a film in the 1960s on Pathé News of some flamenco dancing, actually, talking about Carmen. It's this great old film, and they're just in front of the house dancing. Through the 70s and 80s, there used to be just more and more different shows there, opera, plays, musicals, until the opera became more and more popular. And in 1996, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, very unusually, it was the only opera company run by a council, started a opera company. And in 1996, we started. So it went on. And then in 2015, we became a private company, a charity, and went away from the council. And since then, we've been on our own as a non-arts council supported company, just putting on opera. But we get more and more. We've got the Royal Ballet School with us this year as well, Notting Hill Carnival for a few nights. Some spoken events with Derek Jacobi and Soprano Fines all coming in. So we're still going back, in a way, we're going back to that artistic hub that it started off as many years ago.
It must have an amazingly intimate feel as well, though. Although, you know, you're talking big numbers here and lots of people getting involved. It must be quite intimate as well, because it is in such a, well, not confined space. It's about 45 acres or something, isn't it? But yeah. But it's sort of nestled inside suburban London.
Yes, it's a lovely feeling. I obviously I'm going to be careful with all my contemporaries and friends that run other companies, but I don't like going to other theatres as much after I've spent the summer at our place, because you're used to being with fresh air around you and everything. And the singers, Kezia will be able to tell you more than me, but it's a very intimate space on stage as well, because through the first part of the evening you can see everyone. Which is pretty intimidating, I believe. And then as the evening comes, it gets darker and it has a magic all of its own.
Yeah, it must be magical as well. Well, I should come and see. But I mean, when you first went, or when it first started, because you've been involved a good 20 years or so, haven't you?
Yes, I mean, it's been going 25 years, and I've been there 22 of those. So yes, a long time.
What sort of productions were envisaged from the start? Has it grown and grown?
Yes, it has. It's grown and grown, I think, in ambition. I think that at the beginning, there was a real sense of always looking for some unusual operas as well, which we carry on to this day. We are doing Carmen, as we're talking about. We're doing Eugene Onegin. But we're doing rare operas as well, and we always tend to do that. So it's trying to be a mix of things and say to people, opera doesn't mean just one thing. It's not only, because Carmen's probably the best known opera of them all. And it's a brilliant piece and we love it, but it's not only that, the art form, and it's just trying to give a mix and say to people, come and try it. You might not like it, you might like it. But I think that there's a sense with opera that you have to love it or that's it. If you don't love it straight away, then that's not for you, which is ridiculous in many ways, because as I always say, if you go to a restaurant and you have dinner and you don't like it, you don't say, I don't like food. You just didn't like that meal on that night in that restaurant. And so we try to give a few different angles of things. So just trying to do honest productions, things that really touch people, keep acting up at high standards as well as singing, and just really try and connect with our audiences.
Yeah, I mean, you've provided us with some video of past productions, and my goodness, they look colourful. But also, as you said, they seem to touch everything from the classic opera that some people know and love and want to see, to much more contemporary works. Do you even do completely new works?
Yes, well, we're doing a new work this year, newish, in opera terms, newish, 20 years old, of Louisa Alcombe's Little Women. We're doing an opera that was written in the States 20 years ago. So that's a UK premiere. So I love Little Women. Do you like Little Women?
Love Little Women, yes.
So we're going to do an opera of that. And we've just announced recently that we've got a world premiere commission next year of a book based on Simon Mayo, the broadcaster's book, Itch. His book for young adults. So we're making an opera of that for 2023.
Wow, those are they sound quite edgy as well. But that character we saw there with the beautiful wings, Kezia, I think that was you, wasn't it?
It was. Well, it was Beppe, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the quality, the colour and the scale of the productions, some of them intimate, some of them very, very big. It has become a massive enterprise involving, gosh, if I asked you how many people, well, it's almost difficult to imagine. And you have a friends organisation also sort of supporting, and fundraising, I presume, all the time. It never stops for you.
No, it never stops. But I think that's the good side. I think that being a subsidized company is a good thing. We're a private charity, so we take a lot of money from our box office. We have to sell a lot of tickets. We've got a lot of donors, friends, philanthropists. We do everything just to try and make it work. And I think that what happens though, with a company like ours of our size, with those sort of resources, is you need to make every penny count, which is a very good lesson anyway, but particularly now. So we try not to waste money anywhere. We look at everything, as I always say as a producer, think of it, if it was your money, would you spend that? And if the answer is still yes, then we do it. And if it's no, then we might think, well, we might not do that right this moment.
Well, talk of the stunning numbers, you again have made a video just illustrating what sort of numbers are involved in a season at Opera Holland Park. Take a look at this.
This season at Opera Holland Park, we have
welcomed over 30,000 people through our gates.
That includes 78 public performances and still going.
Despite working at just 40% seating capacity.
Featuring 110 singers.
6 directors.
6 conductors.
52 roles.
51 chorus members.
And our resident orchestra, City of London Sinfonia.
We put on productions of
The Marriage of Figaro,
La Traviata, a co-production with Charles Scott Opera.
4 audio describes performances.
4 young artist performances.
2 school matinees.
4 discovery matinees and relaxed performances.
150 Inspire events, both online and in person.
A series of additional performances with freelancers, including
the Opera and Song Recital Series.
Peter and the Wolf with Waterbury Opera Festival.
London Oriana Choir's first concert since March 2020.
And a guest season from British Youth Opera.
You told us that you felt
welcomed,
entertained,
delighted.
The press called us
London's greenest opera house.
With a sexy new auditorium.
And our shows
world class,
magical,
charming,
imaginative,
bold,
based on a new design by me.
We upcycled seating taken from previous stage productions at Opera Holland Park, Welsh National Opera and the National Theatre.
We supplied 800 blankets.
And sent a staggering 28,000 e-tickets.
We streamed 10 pre-season panel discussions and Q&As online. We've served about 20,000 drinks in the past.
That's more than 350 gallons of wine.
We took 3,770 COVID tests to ensure our casting company was safe.
We helped 2 other charities raise £140,000.
And raised over £85,000 through our Save Our Seats campaign.
The return of Opera Holland Park has been the best thing that's happened to us all year. It means so much more business to the high street, especially for us local restaurants.
Thank you to everyone for making it possible.
We are We like that video. I don't know why. I think it's because we get to see people that you don't normally see when you come as a member of the audience. You get to see what actually are the building blocks inside.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Thank you.
You said you were smiling all the way through that because you remember some funny moments.
Yeah, it definitely gives a flavour of what it's actually like to go there and work every day. It's not just about the shows at the end, or, you know, it's just about that process and everyone that's involved. So you do get to see a little bit of that in that video.
And James, it's funny that's one thing that I think has come out as a positive from the pandemic is the way we've all been resorted, I suppose, to having to video our jobs and what we do and communicate via video, which means that a lot of the people, I mean, you think, for instance, the lady there with all the blankets and laying out all the chairs. And I mean, those are jobs that we never normally see that can now be appreciated. Everybody
Well, it is a bit like that. We all throw in. I mean, the lady with the blankets is actually our head of communication, head of comms. You know, so but she does give them out. Anna gives them out at night as well. And it is that thing that I think, because obviously everyone's had a terrible couple of years, but one of the things is that there's much more interest in the process of how you put things together, and also much more appreciation of it. People are much more appreciative of what you had to do that. You know, and I think that's a benefit that we in the arts have to grab and get people to continue that, not just stop it now. It's sort of getting back to normal. Because there's a lot of people. We have about 300 freelancers in the summer that work for us, and one of the pressures that I particularly was under in the 20 and 21 was the feeling that if you don't get this right, then those people are not going to work, and that's a serious thing. And then once people understand that, they really want to help a bit more, I think. So that, you know, it's nice to show some of the things that go on.
Yeah, I guess traditionally in the world of the theatre and film, I suppose, is that it only matters about the production in front of the audience. But for the first time, we've actually say, hey, what's wrong with breaking that fourth wall and showing people what it's like behind the scenes as well.
Completely agree.
And I think that's liberating in a way.
But also, Anne, you can't really see it on that film so much, but we took the walls of our theatre down. We've been outside, but we had sort of more of a grandstand. And when we took that away, we often have a thing where the theatre is open at 5 o'clock, but the auditorium opens at 6:30 or 7:15. And you'd often have Kezia or other artists on stage warming up or doing dance routines or fight practice or whatever. And we used to keep the audience out for them. But then my team was saying to me this year, well, everyone can see it. And I went, okay, well, then let's jump on that. Let's just, yes, as soon as you arrive at the theatre, you may see people rehearsing because they have to rehearse. That's what happens. And so breaking that down, that, as you say, that wall down was quite a healthy thing, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't spoil the magic, it adds to it. So what about, we saw those chairs there, by the way, which I love the look of those chairs. They're all so different. And as you were saying, every one of them's got some sort of a theatrical story.
Yeah, they've been in lots of our shows. And so we have different directors and designers coming in some nights and saying, that seats it from my show. And you know, and everyone wants to know what shows they're from, and obviously we can't remember them all, but we've got a good list of where they're from. And I was from the Welsh National Opera, and that was in the National Theatre in an Ibsen play or something, and feel, oh wow, that's great. And it's a nice thing to just break the ice, because particularly last year when people come back to theatrical experiences, you wanted them to feel at home as quickly as possible and relax, and it was just yet another thing to help you break the ice with everyone as they were coming back.
So what sort of people are your audiences? Where do they come from?
We've got a lot of local audience being very loyal to us throughout. We've got the local of London audience. We're getting more and more people that just come into London, you know, that live in London rather, coming to us. Because we've got a big free ticket scheme for under 18s, had one for over 10 years. And so we do school matinees, some kids who do school matinees a couple a year. So I think that we just try and say we're just part of London's theatre scene as much as anything. And that's why I say, you know, it's just coming to see a show, and I don't get grand about it. You just want to come in. We're in the entertainment and leisure industry. We want people to come in, have a good night. And if that's whatever, if they're enjoying the drinks at the bar, the food that we're supplying, the operas, everything, the comfortableness of the surroundings, that's where it is. And I think that, so we're getting more and more people coming from different walks of life that just think, oh, it looks like a good night out, and then enjoying the opera more when they're there.
So what about you, Kezia? When did you get involved first with OHP?
I was in the chorus in 2009, I believe, for La Bohème. It was my first professional job. I think it was my first time in an opera, an actual full-scale opera as well, because I was at college at the time. And I caught the OHP bug that year. And I've been back every year to see as many shows as I can. And I've also auditioned many times. And then a role came up that was good for me last year in L'Amico Fritz, Beppe. And now I'm doing this, Carmen. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is your background? When did you first start singing, and when did somebody first think this child needs to be brought on?
Well, my grandmother went to Lambda. She was an actor, and I always sang. And then I was in the village panto. My dad was always the panto dame. My mum was always Robinson Crusoe. And they said, "Oh, she's okay." I was one of the ugly sisters. And they wrote me another verse for the song. And then when I was 16, I moved from Stroud to London, and I went to the Brooke School where I did musical theatre. And a teacher there said that she could hear operatic potential, and she just guided me, held my hand. She even paid all the fees, I think, and gave me free lessons. And I managed to get a place at the Guildhall. Yes.
Mind you, I have to say, with looks like yours and a voice like yours, you were destined to be Carmen sooner or later, weren't you?
That's very kind.
Well, and you're going to be, as I said, this summer, you're going to be part of this coming season. I said that earlier that you're going to be singing all summer, Carmen. Is that, how many performances do you have to do?
We have 10 performances, I believe. One of those is a Discovery matinee as well, which will be at 2 p.m. on a Sunday, I believe. And that's just a freer performance. People can move around, make noise as they wish. It's kind of more accessible. But yeah, it's a great initiative that OHP do.
Now, look, just for anyone watching at the moment who isn't into opera and maybe doesn't know Carmen, could you briefly tell us the story before we hear you sing it? Could you tell us the story of Carmen?
Yes, I don't know about briefly. I mean, I have this book actually from my gran. It's Opera Notes by Robert Thickness, and it says, in short, a dim-witted corporal is comprehensively undone by an unreliable gypsy woman. He kills her. So that's a very... Do you want a bit more?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Don José has had to leave his hometown because he's killed somebody. He goes into the new town of Seville and he becomes a dragoon. So a girl from his village comes to Seville and says, your mum needs you to come back and I've got a kiss for you. And he says, okay, I will, and I'll marry you. And then Carmen turns up. She is working in the cigarette factory. She's also part of the gang. She's a smuggler. And she throws a flower at Don José. And then a little bit later, she gets arrested for fighting in the factory. And he's the one kind of guarding her. She persuades him to let her escape. And she says, and if you let me escape, you can come and dance with me, have a great time at my friend's tavern down the road. Unfortunately, he gets imprisoned himself for doing that, and he gets demoted. But he remembers the name, Lilas Bastia's Tavern, okay, and he turns up there. In the meantime, there's a new guy on the scene, Escamillo, who's in town, who's a matador, and he has a bullfight coming up, and him and Carmen notice each other. So when Carmen and Don José get reunited, it starts off well for about 2 seconds, and then they fall out immediately. And Carmen says, look, if you're really serious, then you're just going to, follow me to the mountains and become a bandit. And he doesn't want to, but then his lieutenant walks in and he has to. So he follows Carmen and all the rest of the smugglers, and him and Carmen are not getting on well. Escamillo comes back on the scene and says, I know it's not going well. Micaela turns up and says, we've really got to go. And then so he does go off with Micaela, but he says, watch out. And then the last act is at the bull ring. Escamillo's going to fight. Carmen is his guest of honor. And it's like a kind of, fiesta party in the town, lots of great numbers in Act 4. And then she gets isolated from everybody. Don José can't take no for an answer, that she doesn't want to be with him. And he kills her, and that's it.
That's it. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can understand from the way you're talking there why you find her an intriguing character, because quite unusually, actually, she's a seductress. She is very sexy lady, and she uses all her charms and her voice to seduce him, and then it doesn't do her any good in the end, I suppose, does it? It's a good story, in other words.
It's a good story. I think being a seductress is just one of her skills. You know, she can speak everybody's language. I always think of her as a shapeshifter. She's able to assimilate into any kind of situation, and that's really her skill. She's very clever. She's very innovative, and she's a hard worker.
And as we were saying earlier, it is now seen as a great favourite amongst so many people, particularly opera, people who are beginning to love opera, maybe always, go to Carmen. But it wasn't very well received in its day, was it?
No way, absolutely. Because it was opera comique, and it just basically pushed the boundaries of opera comique. And, it had those stock characters of Micaela and Escamillo that the people there were kind of used to. But, they talk a lot about Carmen being kind of the other. There's a lot of Orientalism in the music of Carmen, and she's a gypsy. She acts like a man, and she wasn't the stock character to be kind of the protagonist in that kind of style of opera. And musically, it pushes the boundaries as well.
Well, now you've introduced her so well, let's hear you actually singing that aria that everybody, I think, knows so well, and you must have since you were little, I expect. But it's absolutely gorgeous hearing you sing it. Let's hear this now.
Si lui convient de refuser, rien n'est fait, menace ou prière, l'un parle bien, l'autre se tait. C'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il m'appelait. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Bâti de l'aile et s'envola. L'amour, il va, tu peux l'attendre, tu ne l'attends plus, il est là, tout autour de toi, vite, vite, il vient, s'en va, puis il revient. Tu crois le tenir, il t'évite, tu crois aller vite, il te tient. Si tu ne m'aimes
Standing ovation. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. But James, now let's come to you. I mean, because a lot of people are going to say, why doesn't she ask him? What is your job? What is it that you do?
There's a lot of my team ask me that every day. Well, it's sort of split. I've got a double job really. I'm the chief executive of the company, which means overall responsibility for everything, for absolutely everything. But I've got a great team, and that involves fundraising, selling tickets, everything to do with our outreach work and our things. So that's all of that. It's the chief exec job in any normal company that'd be the same. The director of opera job is different, and that's more about, I choose the operas that we do, I cast the singers, I cast Kezia, I choose the directors and conductors, and pass the designs. So I think that we can say, that's what we would like. So directors and designers would come to me after I've given them the job and say, this is how we see Carmen, and I either say, yes, that's great, let's carry on, or no, that's not what I want, go and have another go and come back with something different. So it's just trying to have an overall look. Any producer, which a director of opera is really, I don't direct opera myself. I don't stand in the rehearsal room and tell singers how to do it. That's not right. It's that a director of opera's job or producer's job really is to be the member of the public in the room and in the rehearsal room, in the auditorium, that says that's going to work for the audience, because it's not about us in the business. It's not about us pleasing ourselves or pleasing our colleagues, although we want to do that as well. It's about the audiences coming in, and so it's trying to take a step back and say that show is going to work for us and our audiences, and that's why. And because it's easy in rehearsals sometimes to think we've all been here for 4 weeks, we understand what that means, and the shorthand is there, we understand what we're trying to say. But if you're not selling that to an audience, it's not working. So I try to keep a slight distance and say, yeah, okay, what does that mean? Why is that? So I'm the one that asks the directors questions and say, not really working, what can we do about it? So that's an interesting bit of the job, that one.
But I gather that you weren't initially, anyway, much of an opera lover.
No, not really. I mean, it was just something I was not shown really when I was young. It just wasn't that normal really. I'd been to the opera a few times. I was much more into straight theatre, and I came working straight theatre in the West End for a long time before being in opera. But I'd always enjoyed it when I'd gone. I had CDs or records then, at home, but not really. It wasn't the thing. And like I said earlier on, there's lots of opera I don't like. It's not just about I love opera. I work in opera. I run a company, but you can still have taste within that and think that's good or I don't like that. And opera lover. I like the opera I like very much, and other bits not so much.
But as you said, it's about knowing what works, isn't it? And it must be about creating chemistry on stage.
Oh, it's definitely that. I really believe that. I often say that there's picking these teams that I just described about a director, a conductor, a designer, the singers. It is possible, of course, to get the best people that you can afford in all of those roles. But that doesn't always work. It's got to be the best people for that show at that time and how they interact with each other. Partly because you just get better results, but also partly because, frankly, I'm sort of too old to just go to work with people that I don't like anymore, or have not got the commitment to it, or the open-mindedness, or the way you want to work. And we work in an industry that is not brilliantly paid for a lot of people. And to go there and be miserable seems like the worst of all worlds. So to go into that world and then be happy, not like it's let's hold hands and be happy dancing around, but let's happy creating something that we're all proud of rather than just doing it for the sake of it. And I think when you get the chemistry right, everyone is a proper team and everyone wants to do it for themselves and for each other. And that's when it really takes off.
Yeah, it's got to be fun, hasn't it, for everybody, really? Bottom line, it's artistic, isn't it? You should.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hard work, but I think that, as I say to a lot of people all the time during the seasons, we can enjoy much more of it as a success. And so if we really work hard and really pull together, then we can really enjoy it, and then it becomes great fun.
I mean, and we've got some lovely pictures of people having fun actually doing your productions. I mean, where do all the costumes come from? Is all the staging new for you, or are they established ways of managing certain operas and certain productions? Is it all entirely new?
Well, all our costumes come from Angel's Costumiers in London, which is one of the biggest theatrical costumiers in the world, and we tend to hire them. We only make a few. We made some of those, for example. We hire a lot of those. But each set, for example, we make it every time, every year. And so we just design that show with a director and designer for that particular time, and then it's done. And so it changes at different times. Last year was a very frugal year. It doesn't always look in some of these photos because it looks pretty lovely, but it's a pretty frugal year, 2021, and we had to really take care. So we were reusing a lot of different things. But most of the sets all of the sets are made for each individual production that we do.
Oh, Kezia, I wish we had a picture of you in your Carmen outfit. I imagine you're wearing some really nice dresses.
I will find out on the 20th when I have my costume fitting. I'm very excited.
Brilliant. When do you start rehearsals and things?
I think 2 weeks yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming up soon now.
Yeah, I imagine it feels like a long way off now, but I imagine it really rolls and rolls from now onwards.
Absolutely, yeah. Can't wait.
And what about, I know that Opera Holland Park isn't just about these big ticket performances. You do a lot of outreach work, a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah, we've done it for a long time, years and years ago. And I wanted my nan, who's sadly no longer with us, to come to see a show once, and it was really difficult for her to get there. And it just started off this train of thought for mine about I could take some sort of the show to her. And so then we started doing a lot more outreach work based along those lines. And even through the pandemic, that's ranged from big things of films for people and concerts outside care homes or whatever. But also just singers ringing up some people that are socially vulnerable just on their own. And in the end, we started that just to sing to people. Ended up they have a sing and then they have a chat for half an hour just because it's someone to talk to. So it ranges from all sorts of things about our free tickets, our audio described performances, our relaxed matinees, as Kezia said. We just invite people in and we have breakout zones for them to go to if the kids are being too noisy or whatever. It's just trying to say and take it all, just trying to make it fun, not a chore, to go to the opera for the parents as well. They're worried about their kids being too noisy. And so we go into care homes, hospitals, as much as we can do. And it's just about trying to really be part of the community, which we think we are, and it's just trying to have that responsibility, as you should do, for some people that can bring a bit of light to some people. I always talk about the whole business being enrichment of life. I get to spend most of my working days with Mozart and Bizet and everything, and there are people that just haven't got access to live music at all. And the more music that we can take to people and make it a bit of a better day for them, for a couple of minutes or an hour or so, that's something worth doing.
What is it, though, about the word opera that does seem to put some people off? I mean, we've seen some wonderful pictures there of people singing, and we know that singing is good for us now. We should all be doing more of it. But there's something about opera that turns some people off, about the word opera. They don't even want to go there.
Yeah, I think traditionally over a number of years, a lot of decades, I think our industry hasn't really helped itself particularly. It's encouraged that in a way because opera's a very expensive medium to put on, so it needs a lot of financial support. And people say to me, why? Because we normally have massive orchestras and lots of casts and everything. But some of the things around it have become synonymous with it when they're not actually to do with the art form. Obviously, I love going to lovely theatres that opera has. I love going to the Scala in Milan. It looks very plush and everything, but that's not the actual art form. It's just the building that particular show's in. And because we don't have a dress code, for example, I'm always being asked what's the dress code, and I always say, well, unless you're in the show, it doesn't matter. You can wear whatever you like. And when do you clap? I hate these things about people thinking, am I going to embarrass myself by clapping at the wrong point? Well, why should that be important. It's fine if you liked it, clap. I think that, so in some ways, we've, as an industry, have put up so many divisions over a number of years, and now it's a good time to keep tearing them down as much as we can.
Actually, that's an interesting one for you, Kezia. Have you ever been clapped, applauded at the wrong moment? And do you acknowledge, in opera, do you acknowledge the applause or do you not?
No, we don't. Stay in character, always keeping one eye on the conductor. Because if someone claps at a certain time, then the music might have to be paused until it settles, and then the conductor will say, we'll start again.
Yeah.
And, they clap at different times every night, that's the other thing. What one audience loves, another audience might love a different bit. And sometimes it's composed, an opera's composed so as an aria sort of floats right into the next bit. So there might not be space for applause.
Yeah, I suppose the conductor is the boss there. You always have to keep your eye on him. Have you had any funny moments where mobile telephones have gone off and things like that?
Oh, yeah. I work a lot at WNO, and you've got Carlo Rizzi there, the conductor, and I think he stopped the whole show when someone's phone went off and turned around and was like, said something to them. And, in a way, I think that's it's quite cool because we're just all in a room together listening to some music. It's, let's just stop it and say, hey, that's not cool. Don't have to just pretend and just carry on. So, yeah.
They're the modern scourge of the modern theatre, I suppose, aren't they? What do you do about it, I suppose? So you just have to laugh and get on. But Kezia, we were talking about lockdown there and the way it's affected so many of our lives. I presume, your everyday life as an opera singer stops when we can't go out and we can't mix and we can't perform and you can't even sing. And singing was thought to be pretty bad as well. What did you do? You did something quite unusual.
I did. I've worked since I was 13. So the thought of not working, I started applying madly for loads of different jobs in the city, receptionist, loads of different things. And, it was so competitive. I didn't get a call back from any of them. My CV just said kind of opera singer. So I didn't get a job. And, I thought, okay, well, what do I love? I am a mother, and I had a very positive birth experience, and I became very passionate about, kind of learning about our maternity system and the kind of support a person might need to have a really positive experience. So my friend was doing a doula course, and she said, why don't you do the doula course with me? Hey, I'll pay for your place, because we didn't have any money. Because we just bought a flat and our mortgage offer was about to run out and we had no more work in front of us, and that was May 2020. So luckily someone paid for my course and I did it, and then I just started up my new business and I worked with private clients and through charities. And for anyone that doesn't know what a doula is a professional birth companion, or a doula is someone who supports you through any transition. So there are also death doulas, for example, who hold space for you during your last moments, your last days, months, whatever. But I mostly worked in the birthing room with women. I don't do anything medical. I am just sort of like their hype girl, making sure their voice are heard, making sure they consent, making sure, and then beforehand it's preparation, antenatal education, and afterwards it's just holding space, making toast, making drinks, just making sure they can concentrate on being with their baby and being with their family.
I think that's absolutely brilliant and almost a little bit spiritual. I think that's lovely. I tell you what, a question. This is silly because this comes from nowhere, except it's something I heard a long time ago. That singers, because you have especially good breath control, you're used to taking lots of oxygen into your lungs, you've got very good core muscles, you're particularly good at childbirth. That's what I was told. Is that a myth?
I can only speak for myself, and I know it sounds crazy, but I very much enjoyed labour. I would do labour again, but I wouldn't do another child. I don't want any more children, but I wouldn't mind doing labour again. I found it euphoric. I had Strauss playing. I was just in my living room. It was great.
Yeah, and I don't know how old your child is now, but any signs of musical talent there?
She's 4 and she doesn't like me singing at all. She likes dancing though.
She probably heard enough of you singing when she was in the womb, maybe. I don't know.
I think so.
It's a lovely thought, isn't it? I know that at OHP you were very impacted by the tragic Grenfell fire back in 2017. And I know we have a lot of American people watching, people from all over the world who may not have heard of it, though, of course, it was so awful that it did make global news. But it was when a tower block very near where you are in Holland Park caught fire in the most appalling way. And I think you lost a colleague, didn't you?
Yeah, Debbie, one of our close friends who worked front of house for us, was a great team member. And it was a shocking day for the country, obviously, but it was a shocking day for us because we knew that she lived there. And so we saw it on the news. And then we were ringing around saying, has anyone heard from Debbie, because she lives in that block? And obviously we didn't hear. So I went down there and was just walking around. But this is very close to our theatre. And we got a lot of friends around there, and so I knew a lot of people there because we do a lot of work with the charity there. So they were all saying, "Hi, James, what are you here for? Who are you looking for?" So, yeah, it was a very awful moment because we'd only seen her the night before, at work, and so it was certainly the worst moment in the company's history because it was a friend, and it was a global sort of tragedy because we've lost friends before, as everyone has, but because everyone could see that happen. It just felt so incredibly harrowing. So we had to try and deal with it as a company because there was a collective grief with us as well. And we did some work with that charity, the local charity there. We did a Verdi Requiem that year, almost immediately, and then the following year we did another fundraising concert. And we continue to work with that local charity, doing different things and trying to get the children around that area, particularly, some better experiences. So, yeah, it was a tough time. And we've got a lovely stone at the theatre to Debbie, and we will sort of, nod to it as we go past, because it was such a sort of amazing, incredibly hard-driven moment through all of that time, that we actually had a friend that was there the night before and then got lost their life in that. It was a terrible time.
It was a terrible time, but and you can only do what you can do, I suppose, but you've done a lot since. I've got some questions for you, both from our lovely viewers. What are your top tips? This is for both of you, really. Your top tips for someone who's never really listened to opera before. Is there a good opera for beginners? What way would you draw them in?
Do you want to go first, Kezia?
I mean, because I'm kind of feel like more about the theatre and about the atmosphere, I'd say if you can, go to the opera and experience the whole thing, because it's not just about the music, it's really about the experience. And the opera doesn't matter so much as long as the production really speaks and the chemistry speaks. But I love, if you are just going to listen, I love Cunning Little Vixen, Janicek, and Yennefer as well. I really love those operas.
Do you remember your first opera that you first experienced?
Me?
Yeah.
It was, do you know, I already had my place at Guildhall, and I didn't actually go to the opera until like just a month before I went to Guildhall. I'd never been. And I was standing, and it was some Wagner, and I had some friends from the Brit School with me, and they were just like, what are we doing here? I don't remember what it was, but it was Wagner. But I think, opera just kind of grew on me.
That's quite a tough introduction, Wagner. Yeah. What about you, James? What would you introduce opera to? How would you?
Well, I think if anyone's in London this year, I think Carmen at Holland Park would be a very good introduction to opera. The thing with Carmen is got a lot of music that you'd know it already. It's just in the international psyche. Everyone, even if you think you don't know any opera, you know some of those tunes. But I'm with Kezia on that in some ways an unknown opera or lesser known opera is just as good, because there's operas that people feel scared about, like the two Yennefer and Caciocabanova that we just talked about. They're very difficult operas if you just look at it and go, oh, it's in Czech. It's this thing about a mother and her child or whatever. But it's much closer if you watch film or you watch TV or plays. It's just a narrative of a dramatic film, and the music is important, of course, because it's an opera. But I think you can get carried away with the story more on that. And I think that you know, because obviously the soap opera thing all comes from the daytime TV with washing detergent companies sponsoring the TV shows, because all those things had the emotions of an opera in. I mean, that's where all that the whole thing starts, about calling a soap opera. So I think that there's a lot of just everyday, forever emotions in a lot of them. So I think the Carmen, an unusual one, or of course, it's not my favorite opera, but La Bohème is a perfect opera to see, because I always say I don't think it's his best opera, Puccini, but it's more or less the perfect blueprint for an opera. There's not a minute wasted, and good tunes in and out, you know, 55 minutes each half, and then you're out, and that's it. I mean, it's just as a blueprint for an opera, I think it's probably unbeatable.
Yeah, it's certainly mine, because I think because I studied the story first before I went to see it, and I sort of knew what was going on. I think that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. It is an interesting thing, because I think that obviously does help, particularly if it's in a foreign language. And some of you viewers might not know, but most companies in the world really have surtitles, they're subtitles, but they're above the stage, so you can understand what's going on. But yes, of course. But I also have a slight problem with that, even though I do personally encourage people to do that as well, is that the idea that you'd go to see a film or a play and read it before to make sure you knew what was going on, it's just beyond comprehension that you'd never do that. So in some level, I recommend people to do it myself, so I can't argue with it. But in some things, I just think, imagine what it would be like to go in and see Carmen for the first time, not knowing what was going to happen. Yes. How great that would be. And I think that's the sort of emotion that we search for when we do shows. And when we're doing a big show like Carmen, Kezia will hear this in my opening day speech in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's never just Carmen. It has to be Carmen. This is the show that some people are going to see for the very first time. And we have to remember that really potentially could blow them away and give them a lifetime love of opera. We have to take it absolutely at face value and do the best show we can. So
you're absolutely right. I mean, Madame Butterfly, I didn't know what was going to happen first time I watched it.
Is that right?
It still upsets me.
Yeah. I mean, Butterfly was the first opera I ever saw, actually, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and it is just wow. Okay, and you forget that sometimes, that because you're often asking questions about how are you going to do this, how are you going to do that, whereas the audience, if they don't know, they're thinking what's going to happen. And there's a slightly different thing of why we need to remember that the audience are seeing the story for the first time possible.
Yeah. No, you're right. So you just got to pick and choose the way you want to see it, I suppose.
Yes.
Another question is, are there any good movies that have gotten people into opera?
There's Moonstruck with Nicolas Cage and Cher. It's an absolute classic. I love it. They go to see La Bohème in it. And also there's Pretty Woman, obviously. They go to the opera in that film.
Yeah.
And even Philadelphia with Tom Hanks listening to opera got me listening to that, finding out what opera it was and trying to get into it. So there are, and also there are adverts as well that get you listening to opera, because as you mentioned before, advertising people know the power of a good aria or a good phrase.
I think that's right. And I think that you use the advertisers use those bits of music. And so we could sit here, we're not going to, don't worry, but we could sit here and say, do you know that piece of music from an opera? And most people would say, no, I have no idea. And you'd play it and they'd say, oh yeah, I know that. I do know that. And they've been used so many times. I mean, years ago now, but the use of opera through on Inspector Morse was used all the time in that show, not only about his character development, but just as ambient music as well. So I think that's it's a big thing that people just do like it. They just think that they might not like to go, and that's part of our job to get rid of that.
It just seems a shame sometimes when people call it by the advert's name rather than knowing.
Well, when we did last time we did Lacme, the entire audience stopped and looked at each other when we got to the flower duet, because I was standing in the back. If you just flower duets, the British Airways, where everyone's looking at each other and you think, oh God, this is all people are talking about. These poor singers on stage trying to do this work. It was completely lost.
And you must have noticed the difference as well when Nessun Dorma was chosen as the aria that was sung in the advertising breaks. In what was it? Was it World Cup?
Italian 90, World Cup 90.
Yeah.
And that did, I wasn't working in opera at that time, but everyone says to me that was a massive shift in popular. People were going in the years after that just to try it out because they'd heard those arias. You know, one of the problems with that was that Pavarotti is one of the best singers of all time, and that aria is one of the best arias in the entire thing. So some of it, I guess, was a disappointment to people. But I think that there was just an amazing influx of people to see. So, yeah.
Every little helps, doesn't it?
Every little helps.
Finally, a question for both of you. Your personal favourites, both opera and non-opera. Who should we go? Kezia first. So is it your personal favourite opera and then maybe something that's non-opera?
Do you know what? It's got to be my personal favourite productions because it's just about I mean, things like Carmen really, you know, they move me every time I go and every time I listen to them. But I like, it was a fantastic production of Saul at Glyndebourne a few years ago, which is just a spectacle. So I'd say that sticks in my mind. Peter Grimes recently at the Opera House is a fantastic production, stuck in my mind. And when you say non-opera, what do you mean?
I don't know. What I mean, do you listen to popular music? Do you like any particular bands or?
We listen to a lot of reggae in my house.
Really?
And yeah, a lot of reggae goes on here, and a lot of kids' film soundtracks as well.
Okay, James, your turn.
The opera, possibly the famous ones, possibly Tosca. I love Tosca. And I think of non-opera, I'm a big Beatles fan, so, you know, most of their albums, and I love Miles Davis. Miles Davis Kind of Blue, I'd probably be one of my Desert Island discs and just play that continuously. And I think all of that, because I think that one of the things is, you know, if you like it, you like it. Is this constant thing I keep repeating about. You might like some of it, you might not. And people are always amazed when I'm going home and saying I'm going to go and listen to Bob Dylan or something. And saying, oh, after doing the opera, and well, yeah, that's my job. And now I'm going home to do something else. So, so probably that Miles Davis and the Beatles, I think, would be my non-ones.
Well, we know what you're going to be doing for the next few months anyway, and that's pretty hard work getting the Holland Park on the I was going to say on the air, but getting it going. Fingers crossed for really good weather for you, because I know that helps. Although, as you said, you don't get wet because you are covered. But it must make life simpler if it's not.
It makes it a lot nicer. Although sometimes, and we get the singers are too hot, because we've often done opera set in Russia in the middle of a snowstorm. And we've got people in furs and everything, and it's 80 degrees, and or the opposite way around. So we deal with it every day as it comes on stage.
Oh, these are problems we've never thought of, but good luck with those. Anyway, have a fantastic season. I do.
Thank you so much.
And come and see you in action. But do have a fantastic season at Opera Holland Park. Thanks to both of you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next week, I'll be talking to Professor Jessica Mewig, Director of the Centre for Marine Futures at the University of Western Australia. She's one of the top scientists working with Viking's new expedition ships and has a team of experts working on board Optantis at this very moment. She'll be telling us about the work they're doing and the impact it's having on marine knowledge worldwide. So until then, stay safe and well, and I'll join you again next Thursday.